Good evening. Thank you for attending the Preservation Commission meeting. My name is Carlos Ruiz. I'm the Preservation Coordinator for the city. I want to welcome you to the meeting. Just have a couple of announcements. One, we have a sign-up sheet for the audience outside. If you are a member of the audience and like to address the commission tonight, you please sign that up. And then we have the sign-up sheet for the applicants. So when we call your name, you can sign that up. So if you'd like to sign that to the outside in the meantime, we will ask you to use the pointer here, the green, and then there's forward and backward. Said Bill, we have a separate system for this. So that's for you guys. We try to make this friendly and informal. This is not a courtroom. This is your neighbors, your peers, to the Livingston volunteers, Preservation Commissioners. So we hope that we have a dialogue other than anything else. So what I would recommend that is that if the commission has certain suggestions, any messages to your project, just take it in, so they will try to address your concerns and also ensure that the standards that apply will be met and they can improve the project. So I'm just going to get started. Thank you.
I'd like to call to order the Tuesday, February 12th, 2019 meeting of the Evanston Preservation Commission. We have a quorum of 7 commissioners tonight. And the time is 7:01. Thanks, Carlos. But one more, I appreciate the procedural comments that Carlos gave. Just in terms of each presentation, we'll ask the individual who's here to speak for the petitioner to come up and introduce themselves, say what their role is with respect to the project, and make their presentation. We'll then allow the commissioners to ask questions to clarify and try to better understand the proposal, and then we'll ask the petitioner to have a seat. We'll see if anyone else wants to speak, and if not, the commissioners will then have discussions, and if a motion is brought to vote. So our first project is old business that is deferred as 1222 Trident Place, William James applicant.
So I can sign, correct?
Yes.
All right, well, thank you very much. This is old business continued from several months ago. I appeared before all of you at that time with an entirely different design, entirely different plan, and actually, given the feedback that I got, I rethought the project and had moved in this new direction. So, let's see here. Okay. So yeah, the design direction is the same in terms of the program of the house on the property. So it's a single house on 2 lots, building entirely on the eastern lot and leaving the western lot for patio and open space. And the reason for this is I built the 2 houses immediately to the west. Got a lot of buyer feedback that 10th Street is a negative, that there's a need for outdoor space that's not along Dempster Street, and that there was a preference for contemporary design. So in response to this, I'm using the 2 lots for 1 house. The western lot will be a large green area that would be away from Dempster Street. I also want to incorporate what you saw before was this water wall fountain / sculpture. It would be located at off the southwest corner of the house, in front of the outdoor patio. Would provide a backdrop to the patio. This is the main outdoor space for the house. It would provide some acoustical baffling of the noise from Dempster Street, as well as creating a nice sense of place visually. So that is still part of the plan. In terms of the architecture, so I have gone in a different direction and very comfortable with this direction. Really, the inspiration for this is the house that you see on the right-hand side. So what I would like to do, I do believe that a more contemporary look is desired within the marketplace and appropriate for this location, but rather than going to a completely postmodern kind of style, to take a contemporary interpretation of a classic or more traditional style like this is, I think, what I think is appropriate and good for this. So the form of the house would be more regular, with a clear rhythm and form to it that would be sympathetic to other buildings in the immediate area. And the materials would also be traditional materials that appear on other buildings in the area, but used in a slightly more contemporary way, a little sleeker, a little sharper. So that's the design direction for the house. And the architectural plans, first floor is very open. It has very strong upper connections, particularly to the west, where the dining room, the living room, it would be connected to the patio directly, and would line up with the kitchen. So with all of the windows and the doors that would open onto the open space, this is very much oriented toward the west. The main entrance would be to the north. On the same side as the garage. The second floor would be slightly larger because we're building over the garage area. So there are 4 bedrooms around a central staircase. There is an outdoor roof terrace or balcony, which is 10 feet by 25 feet. Master bedroom here. Separate closet for a large master bath. I think the layout actually is an improvement over the prior plan as well. And the basement would be a smaller basement that would be underneath this western portion of the building. The elevations are going to be presented now. So this is the west elevation, a very important elevation in the design. As you approach the house along Dryden Place, which is the private drive going from Asbury eastward toward Ridge, but not connecting with Ridge, you would see this elevation looking across the open lawn. So it is a brick facade with limestone surrounds over the doors and the windows. A rather kind of traditional-looking window and door arrangement, a very regular spacing with this would be aluminum clad with simulated divided light interiors, and a little darker color, probably a copper, a bronzish color of the door and window cladding with awnings over. There would be 2 entries over here on the west side, opening onto the patio space. And the roofing would be a patina-colored metal roofing, simulating copper, and that would be very visible on this western elevation. The north elevation would have the garage is recessed back off of the northern portion of the western portion of the house. So this would be a front door with windows on the first and second floor around it. This area here would be the roof terrace off the master bedroom. And this is the garage door entrance here with the same roofing on this northward sloping roof area. The south elevation would be in the same style, the same form and rhythm of openings. So it would be all of these ones are regular spacing. There would be a left-to-the window in the attic area, and this would be another roofing as well, with a awning covering the entrance from the interior space out to the patio. And this is the east elevation, the least prominent of all the elevations, but still done in a quality way with quality materials and good spacing of the architectural features. So the 3D visualizations, we have this view looking from Dempster Street northwesterly. So this is the 1212 house, prairie style house that is there. This is the 1244 Italian made house that is there. There's a space between the two because that would be where the open lot is for the yard and terrace. So I think this picks up on the same kind of regular spacing of windows and openings. The overall shape and massing of the building is comparable to the two that you see here in the simulation. And I think the roof structure is sympathetic to these other roof structures as well. On this simulation looking from Dempster Street Northeast, from the 1244 Brighton Place residence, and again there would be this open area in between this house and the 1222 house, which is the subject of this hearing. So the house has two roof shapes, one that's oriented east-west and then one that's oriented north-south. So you see the east-west portion here, this is the north-south portion here, and there are small gable windows in the roof structure. I did another 3D simulation. So this is the a real focal point for the house, the outdoor space that is just to the west of the house itself. Here we see the awnings over the entrances, the French doors that open up onto the roof, onto the terrace, the outdoor terrace, landscape area, a flower bed in front of the house, a generous patio area, and then this would be the water wall. I think with the landscape plan, I've always made a major emphasis with landscaping on all of my houses. This would be the same with a strong evergreen a buffer, a screen similar to the houses that you see there. Behind that would be taller deciduous trees, really creating a strong green buffer along Dempster Street. I really want to define the open yard space, so I'll have trees along the western property line as well, with a lot of ornamentals near the house and around the water wall. And here we see a blow-up of that particular area. So in terms of building materials, again, these will be traditional materials used in a slightly more contemporary way. So the brick will be a smooth brick with some variation in color, but not highly distinguished in terms of different shades of buffer yellow. I want to really establish this color theme between the yellow, kind of rose yellow brick and the patina green metal roof. The limestone will be a strong accent, but used in a very simple and strong way. The darker bronze cladding of the windows, I think, will form a nice complement to that as well. And the water wall will be a tannish natural stone that will complement the color of the brick. And then I have the standards that you have in your packet, which I can go through, but probably don't think I need to. So that is the proposal, and very interested to hear your comments and feedback.
Any questions?
I love the side patio with the all over the little community.
Yeah, if you're going to devote the side lot to open space, you really want to have all your views oriented on that way.
Could you have one clarification with some of the drawings? Could you explain better how you envision the roof meeting the walls? Is it kind of overhanging, or is it set back together? Some drawings hanging over.
Yeah, there would not be an overhang. I want to go back actually to the design direction here. I think that probably shows it best. So yeah, here actually, my thought was to have a very, very low, almost invisible parapet wall, and the roof dying into the parapet wall, creating essentially a gutter there. So I think it would really trash up the look to have gutters overhanging off the roof. Yes.
Yeah, I think the drawings are, they just are very cartoon-like, and I think the renderings do it more justice, but I really am having a problem with some of these drawings because of what they show and what they don't show. And in terms of what Ken was just saying, the roofs, the overhangs, it's sort of, it doesn't really look like there was a great deal of thought into these drawings, which is representing what is being built. And then I have a question about the windows on the south elevation versus the north elevation, choices of scale of garage doors, and entry. And so I feel like it wasn't really developed, and I know you're showing us something that was in a magazine, which is interesting, but that's, anyway, that's my feeling.
I also have a question about the east elevation too, because it doesn't seem to fit, again, building on what Julie said, with the rest of the elevations in terms of its animation.
Well, there is a limitation on the east side with the garage being in here. I suppose we could put windows on the garage if that would help the animation. And I'm not sure if there's a way to get, say, 4 windows across here that would,
right.
And I'm open to that.
I wasn't clear about whether the questions were just limited to the ability to visualize it from what's in the drawings, or actually the need to modify the design.
Can we go to the, I think it's the west elevation?
Yeah, so and along the east, when you look to the east side, we have these 2 upper windows here, this window here, and then we have the roof terrace. This is the staircase. It would be, I think, a little problematic to have a really high window there, perhaps. But again, like I said, I'm open. Did I mean to cut anybody off here?
Can we go to the, well, let's try the south elevation. I'm not sure. That's the one I want. Okay.
This is the south elevation?
No, then go to the west. All right. Now, I don't know if this, I'll try to run this thing. This works. Yeah, show me how. All right. We've got these windows, we've got these windows. Now can we go back to the one you showed us that was your, whatever, generated the original. All right, go back. All right. The difference here is you can see that every one of those round windows lines up pretty much with the windows on the facade. And I think there was an organization there, the proportions of the windows, the proportions of these. Now we go back to yours.
if I could point something out
And
here.
I think it's even worse.
I believe that this is actually a curved element in the
All
front.
right, but the windows on either side, everything's lined up. There's an organization there, and then we can go to yours, and it's not, none of what's on the roof doesn't line up with anything down below. And I think if we go around some of these others, some of your other elevations, probably the east is a bigger problem. If we go to the east, might as well. Okay, well, let's go. Because here, you know, you have to cut it off because of this. None of these are in any way organized. I mean, I was looking at your plan, which I think is probably the north or south that you showed a couple minutes ago, and I realized that you're trying to make you're not making the plan work with the elevation or the elevations work with the plan. I mean, it all worked back in the 19th century or whatever because they would just make rooms and call them rooms and didn't label them as anything. And everything was a bedroom or a living room or whatever else. But here, there's no relationship at all between these. And the proportions of these are convincing if I say this is a brick wall and brick walls should have punched openings. But then we turn the corner, and I'm not sure which corner.
This is the south elevation.
Yeah, then we go to the west elevation, ironically, and we've got what really look like a whole series of French doors. And you'd think, my goodness, there must be an enormous ballroom on the second floor because look at these floor-to-ceiling windows, and there doesn't seem to be any relationship when I look at this and then I turn the corner at the windows or anything else. It's as if each elevation is a freestanding element. I look at this, and look at the others, and there are 4 elevations for 4 different houses would probably be more convincing. Can we go back one? You just had it. Yeah, and boy, here's this is the grand front entry of the house. And that somehow, for all of that formal stuff that we saw on the other side, this doesn't seem to relate to that at all. I can't tell without knowing behind it. And this garage door, unfortunately, doesn't work with anything else that's happening there. There's something here that's trying to, I mean, Julie, you were more critical in your first comments, so I won't repeat it. But these just seem to be lacking an awful lot of sophistication for the kind of house that you're trying to model yourself. And the scale of that original house is substantially larger.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And I think you can't just say, I will squeeze it down and it'll all work. I think you have to start with the house and not, okay, I've got an idea for a house and I'll make it all fit within this envelope. And I think that's what we're seeing here. I also don't see any relationship, and I suppose we don't have to, with the other houses there. And maybe you were trying consciously, I mean, you have a problem with the Prairie School to the east, but it seems as if maybe material or maybe something else would have worked.
Well, I mean, the materials are, I think, a connection. The houses to the west are both brick and stone houses, and they are of similar scale. They have similar rhythms of openings.
What is it about the color of all the bricks in those buildings over there? With the exception of the Prairie School one. It seems to me they're all, what, dark red?
Well, they're not. The house on the corner is a dark red. The house between this house and the corner house is a brown, a tannish color. Okay.
And the old school? The old school headquarters?
Well, so you're talking about the Dryden Mansion. The Dryden Mansion is yet a different color. Has a greater variation between really blacks and reds and so forth. I don't think I hadn't intended to have any kind of color theme running between the houses, and I think they should be separate from that perspective. And with respect to the garage door, I mean, I'm not sure if you've seen a range of design styles for garage doors that I haven't, but there's not that much to choose from. It could be made into two separate doors. That is possible. But do you have suggestions on that?
Number of available garage doors.
Pardon me?
I don't even know how you could say that. There's just an incredible range of available garage doors. Whether they're overhead or whether they operate, they're all operating doors that could be much more in the character of this house. And I'm not sure if there certainly would have been a better option on that front door as well. That doesn't seem to relate to the doors, to the windows around.
That isn't really the front door, is it?
Yes, it is.
But it is the front door, yes.
That's the front entry of the house.
Okay, because I get the west elevation is the one that's essentially the back of the house. Am I correct?
It's the side.
It's the side. Yeah, but it is the most common elevation due to the orientation to the open yard. And it is definitely possible that these doors would be used by the family, and that the door on the north would be more for guests.
Pardon me, Bill, isn't that the south elevation?
No, this is
No,
the west
this is the
elevation.
West.
This is the one facing the garden.
Yeah,
on the west
so-
side.
Can I ask we didn't get the plans, right? We have no plans.
And we didn't have the west
And
elevation.
so one of the things it is difficult since we're seeing plans, but there were no plans that we got.
Well,
And
I did submit the plan.
Let me interject a little bit. We were instructed that we cannot have plans anymore for privacy issues. That is city policy. So that's why I explained in the email that from now on we won't have plans. Now Mr. James brought his own
Floor plans, I took
presentation.
floor
No, you did.
plans.
No, don't get me wrong.
Okay.
He did present those, but we could not put them in the.
So I have a question about that because I did read your email. So this is just a general question. If we don't have plans, it becomes very difficult to understand how these sit on the site. So I would just like to stress that that is just difficult for any project. Okay, and I understand we're not judging or critiquing or anything in terms of the interiors, but it makes it more difficult. So having said that, we don't have them, and so it is more difficult to put it together. I guess I would say, if you think about the standards, I don't think there's anything that is, is sort of traditional. There's the kind of prairie-style building to the east of it, and that whole block is really different buildings. But I think it's just purely, for me, the development and the care that has been taken with this particular design from every facade. It has, in my mind, because of the composition, the change of windows, the ovals being different sizes, it has just not been developed. And we're being asked to sort of look at a new building in terms of the standards, which, we're not really supposed to talk about design as much, but it just feels very, very undeveloped. That's what I want to say.
So,
it's hard to...
one question I have is this about the standards or is it about the design of the house? Frankly, if we were to look at the 1212 house and look at the placement of windows and the development and consistency of that, there would be huge gaps in that. I honestly appreciate your comments, and actually the things that you've said, I would take to heart and make some revision here. But I thought this was about how this design relates to the context, the historic character of the area.
I think there are two things we look at. One is we can look at the relationship to the surrounding, direct relationship to the surrounding houses. I think I'm agreeing with Julie that given the, there's not a consistent development, I'm agreeing with you, there's not a consistent development on this site, there never was. and it's way too late to do that. And so I'm not willing to, obviously if you were doing something dramatically different, it would be an issue, but I think that it's not realistic to expect you to necessarily match the surrounding houses, which aren't in themselves consistent. And it's, again, it's not in a row of other older homes. On the other hand, I think as we look at the preservation standards, without getting into the wording, a design that is, one of the things we come across, particularly as we're looking at new construction, is a design that doesn't seem to us that is kind of, first of all, that the plans are well enough, are further enough along that we can make a decision about what it's going to look like, which I know was the problem I was having was compared to a lot of presentations to us, I just was having a really hard time ascertaining what this would look like. But in addition, things that are, things that are better designed don't, intrude on the historic character of the district. Something that you look at it and you say that just, sticks out like, I won't use any words, is something that's not good historical preservation. So we try not to tell people how to design things, but I think inevitably there's some effort to try to make it, at least in the case of this house, which a more consistent design, better developed, and I think I support what other people were saying, that some improvement of that would seem realistic, and with you still being able to eventually get there and build a house.
So again, one question I would have is, it's not okay to have a particular treatment of one elevation and versus another. So this elevation versus that elevation, or having floor-to-ceiling windows is a problem in bathrooms, for example. So and in kitchens. So the kitchen is here, and so counter space and so forth, countertops, would be a problem if the windows extended down to the floor on all elevations. Is it necessary that happen? I guess when you talk about consistency, does it have to all look like the primary elevation?
I don't think we want to. We'd like to tread as lightly as possible in telling you how to design the house. On the other hand, I think probably the only reaction you've heard so far from the architects on the panel, as somebody who's sympathetic to your situation, I think the critiques were pretty dramatic critiques that the house might not look at all fitting because of the just extreme differences between the facades rather than just subtle design changes. I think that's the concern, is it's just so far. Those facades are just so different from each other that it's hard to reconcile what's going to look like.
To bring it back to the standards, I think it's really numbers 3 and 4 that deal with proportions of openings and rhythm of solids and light on the elevations.
I agree.
And it is a difficult site where you sort of, the north facade facing the private lane is sort of the front, but then you've got the garden facade on the west, which is very important, and then the south facade facing Dempster is what actually 99% of the people passing by are going to actually see as the front. So you can almost have like 3 different front facades, and right now all 3 are very different from one another. And I don't exactly know what the answer is. That's the stumbling block.
So if one were to look at this house and compare all the facades, they would be very different from one another. And I'm not saying that a particular design failing justifies another design failing, but what I would say is that I believe, given the function of the house, it's appropriate to have a particular emphasis on openings and light and views going out of this western portion of the house onto the open lot. And what I mean from you is, no, it can't be radically different from the other facades. Where I think if there's a central part of the whole program is to have a house with 2 lots and having the orientation of the house be toward that open lot.
You know, you raised an interesting question about the windows, and you said something about the windows in the bathroom versus the kitchen and all the rest. I wouldn't have expected them all to be the same. And in fact, most houses, chances are if there's a window in the bathroom, it's not going to be the same size as the window in the bedroom or the window in the kitchen. And you've made them all the same. But the other issue is you're looking at each of these elevations as a distinct individual object. One of the things that you're seemingly not looking at, even though it sort of shows up in your perspective, is what happens as you turn the corner. I look at some of these windows when I get to the corner, and then if I turn to the next facade and I realize if I'm looking at the corner, I'm going to see a punched window over here, there, and a big strip window there, and yet they're possibly, without looking at the plan, they're possibly in the same room. I don't know if they are or not, but it's as if this is these are 4 pieces of wallpaper, and as they come to the corner, are you really looking at what happens at the corner? Because you will be seeing more than one facade. It's rare that we look at this. I mean, the problem with an elevation is it's seen from 1,000 miles away. It's not in perspective. There's no distortion. But in fact, we're not looking at the house that way. No one walking up to the house, driving up to the house on the north side on Dryden, or walking by, assuming they can see over the evergreens, is going to see that. You know, you go back to your perspective, your little 3D rendering. You know, and you realize it's hard to see. No, not that one, the one you just had. It's very hard to see, but I'm seeing the south elevation, and then something happens around the corner. It would be more interesting to have seen that south elevation and the west elevation where you drop the windows all the way to the floor. And how does that relate to that elevation? That's the thing. They don't seem to be part of the same house.
You know, maybe just more simply, because I'm just looking at these drawings, and the parapet isn't lining up on 2 elevations, and so I am really not convinced that when you made these drawings that we have, these elevations, that I don't think they're completely correct. And so the windows are different heights, so I think what has to be done, because I am objecting less to the design and more to just the drawings and making, sure that your window heights align and so that you can see the design, because we are looking at this and I'm just saying, like, what's going on, on your drawings. If the windows don't align and they're supposed to, but they're not in the drawing, there's an overhang, there's not, all of these things, this is all we have to judge, really. Okay, not forget judge. This is all we have to look at and say, oh yes, this is figured out. So it actually doesn't quite look figured out to me. I really understand, and that's what I'm objecting to. So I could say, like, oh, why didn't you use the same oval window size? Why did you scale down? But then I'm saying, why don't the parapets align on 2 elevations? And I think it's just drawn it's just not drawn well for us.
So you're saying the parapet on this doesn't align with the parapet?
Yeah, I'm just looking at my drawings here that I printed. It looks like they should. I'm just looking at the drawings. I just aligned them up. Where the window heads are seems different on the east elevation and south.
This is
compared to the
consistent line here.
Yeah, go as you go around the building. So I don't know, but that's what I'm looking at here. So, in terms of the detailing of the elevations, overhangs, parapets, centering, the doors, where you center things, all of the choices that you make, those kinds of things are less for me about the choice of what this looks like, as opposed to like what the intent is and how it's drawn. I think that could be corrected if you took if someone who was drawing these took greater care to actually go back and look at them. Is there a parapet? What does that look like? What is is the roof over on the east elevation that isn't centered between the windows? I mean, there's all of those questions, so I would look at that. I think that, if you just went back if someone went back and really drew this carefully.
Here, there is a closet here, and these are actually in the master bedroom space, which is why they're spaced the way they are. I mean, with respect to this wall and this wall, they can't be spaced equidistant and aligned with the functional of the floor plan.
And maybe for a back facade, that's okay. I guess we're struggling to understand the logic because you have all the windows in this elevation are the same, and yet it's just this elevation has that type of window. And then you turn the corner and all the windows are exactly the same, no matter what's happening inside, but those windows are unique to the south elevation. I guess that, and then you go to the north, and we've got these type of...
Well, these windows are the same windows that are on this elevation, these windows here.
The irony of that east elevation, and you gave us the reason to go back to it, as to why those two windows are where they are. But you realize those are possibly the only two windows on the entire house where they're not symmetrical within any portion of the facade. You've gone through great pains to make everything line up, everything symmetrical, sort of in the vertical and the horizontal, all the windows to be the same. And what makes that, you've got a reason for it. But then there could have been a reason for why some windows weren't the same size. This is the one time where things don't line up. And it actually stands out more because it is the one time. And it's, to some extent, the least important elevation. No, it's the least important elevation, and yet,
but
I think the point was made that as you turn the corner, you suddenly switch window size.
And this is facing the garage on the 1212 house. And the lower portion of that house, it has no windows at all.
How far away are you from that house?
It'd be about 12 feet.
Is there anybody else who's going to speak to this project? Why don't you take a seat for a minute, and then we'll just hear the one additional person before we talk about it. Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Randy Smith. I, along with my wife, own the 1212 Dryden Place home. We bought it about a year ago. We did not design it. We love the design, but we did not design it. A lot of the issues here, I think, have been, that I had in looking at the packet have been explained by Mr. James in terms of showing a more articulated presentation of what are the materials in the packet, included references to a flat rubber roof and wood siding, which I think was a carryover from the original design. So the application didn't talk about using the same materials as the drawings. And then there were no floor plans and so forth. So I struggled with some of the same issues that some of the commissioners have been asking. I appreciate that from the first design to this design, it's been brought in conformity with a single lot. One of the issues that I had the first time around was that the two lots were being combined for zoning purposes, but it was oversized for a single lot. The footprint is now a little smaller. The point I wanted to ask about really relates to the height and volume of the building. From the first design, which was really a two-story, to now 10 feet have been added and it's now excluding the chimney 34 feet high. A large portion of that is taken up by this attic, which I haven't seen a floor plan, but since it goes to 9 or 11 feet at various points, I was questioning in my own mind whether some of that was going to be turned into living space so that this could become as much as a 4,500 to 5,000 square foot home above ground. And so the proportions that we're talking about before, taking a much bigger house and putting it on here, our 2 stories come up to 26 feet. We then have a roof above it, which is steeply sloped away. We have no attic. So although our house is based on the floor plans that I've seen, the blueprints that I have, and I assume the house was built exactly to those, although our house does go somewhere between 30 and 30 and a half feet, if you come up to the house and look at it, it looks much more like a 26 or 28 foot house because of the way the roof is sloped. And my concern with the height of this was its proportion relative to the others in the neighborhood. So those were the questions I had, and the answers to those are undoubtedly above my pay grade. So.
With that in mind, can you put to the
So your house is the house to the west?
No, that's the house to the east.
Because from the drawing you wouldn't know that.
Yeah, it certainly looks like the newer house comes a bit lower than his E line, and I guess I'm wondering how accurate this may be.
Can I just add, to clarify a little?
Yeah.
Not dragging anything at all. The 2 stories that we have would be higher than the 2 stories in the plan that Mr. James has shown. So it's not incorrect. The top of that, where you're pointing on our house, the top of the gutter is 26 feet, 25 and a half feet. And based on the plans that have been presented by Mr. James, I think the first 2 floors of the proposed house would be shorter than that. But then the volume of the attic space, or whatever's up there, blows considerably by that. And the other point simply is that because of the slope of the roof on our house, and the fact that there really is no attic there, we've got 2 floors, and it looks a little bit more like they've got 3 floors in this plan.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? I mean, it sounds like there's, at least everyone who's spoken, at least seems to have some consensus there.
I would say that it would also help, because I do think that there's some issues with the drawings and heights of things and roofs of the drawings, and when you look at the rendering, it would help if you drew in answer to your neighbor's issue of heights, if you drew your house in relation to the house next door as opposed to just seeing this rendering. So that would be important, because it looks like it's much higher, but there is some inconsistency with your drawings that we're finding. So anyway, but that might help us as well.
I don't have drawings of his house. How would I draw in relation to his house?
Well, he might, and he might have, it might be helpful. I think one of the things that we do see within the Preservation Commission, we do see, we have seen streetscapes, where people have other houses put in so you can see the massing. We've seen a lot of things to help us understand. So I'm just saying your neighbor has asked a question which is valid in terms of the height, and it's so.
Well, if I could respond to that comment, it would be on the proposed house, the roof is intended to be a visual feature, unlike the 1212 house where the slope of the roof and so forth is really minimizes the roof as a design feature. And if you look at the house to the west, that is a significant design feature as well. The red color, if you look at the house on the corner, that also has a significant roof structure as well. It's a feature. The Dryden Mansion has a very significant roof as well. So there is that character within the district, in the immediate area of the district.
Would you be willing to bring the house back next month if you're ready, both with respect to the respond to the extent you can, both to the concerns about the depiction as well as the design? Is that something you'd be willing to do?
Yes. So I would like to, I have heard a range of comments, starting with, well, you can't take a picture of a house and design toward it. That's really not valid. That's one extreme. And then one is, well, if you just line everything up and take more care in the drawing, it would help.
So I think it's apologies, but the nature of the commission is such that you'll hear some different opinions, and obviously you're going to have to use your judgment about which ones is realistic for you to respond to. On the other hand, I do think that you did hear some solid degree of consistency as to both the issues with respect to, I guess, standards 3 and 4, as well as just our ability to really understand your intent based on the drawings. I think several different people mentioned both of those, and I think you may make decisions that some opinion somebody expressed just isn't something you're willing to address. But I think there was certainly, I hope you heard a degree of consistency among the remarks that would be something you might be able to respond to.
Yes, and as I said, I think some of the comments are very good. I'm always interested in improving a design, and I would be very happy to look to do that on this and to address specific comments about how the house is put together. There would be, frankly, some collection boxes and a downspout in strategically located places to get the water off the roof that aren't shown here. I haven't gone to that detail. So those are things that would be added, as well as looking at enhancing elevations with respect to the windows in the attic. Again, these are a design feature, and that can be looked at. And this elevation could be improved. The garage door, I will look at the garage door, and I would like it to be an attractive element. So that's what I've taken away from this.
Okay, great. Thanks. We'll entertain a motion to continue to next month.
Before that, can you provide drawings for the next month on March 12th? We will need to have
by March 12th?
No, that's the day of the meeting. So we need to publish the drawings at least 5 business days prior to the meeting. So we ask people to submit drawings at least 3 weeks in advance. But since you are continuing, maybe we can.
3 weeks would be difficult given that it's a month away.
Right. So you want to have to the April meeting rather than March?
I really want to. I do have a backbone on this. I need to actually get something approved and get started to show progress on building this. So I would like to, if you give me a date for the submission of the March meeting, I would enjoy that.
February 19th.
Well, I thought you said I didn't need 3 weeks.
Well, I'm just trying to consider that, but it will be at least 2 weeks before the meeting. That will give me time to prepare the packets and all that. And the other thing is, I appreciate the fact you brought your presentation, but we really need to put on the packet what the commission is going to see at the meeting, rather than something that, now we have 2 different presentations. One that the application, which we show online.
I was not aware that you were going to be making a presentation.
No, but we were here before, so we did it the same way for the first one. I'm just trying to help you out so that there's no opportunity for someone to look at this packet and say, well, this is not what the commission receive, and this is what the application show at the meeting. So we need to be as consistent as possible throughout. Mm-hmm. So that's why I'm thinking, if you don't have the time to do all the...
no, I will do it, okay? I don't want to go to the April meeting. I can't go to the April meeting.
Yeah. All right, so 2 weeks before the...
Okay.
Somebody want to make a motion to continue until the March meeting?
I move that we continue the application for 1222 Dryden Place to the March 12th, 2008 or 2019 meeting of the commission.
Second. Second on it. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Carried. Thank you. Okay. The next, we'll move on to new business. The next project is 1426 Asper Avenue.
Hello, my name is Mike Hauser. I'm the architect for the Aherns, Carla, and Mark behind me. Thank you for coming out tonight and hearing our case. The Aherns have lived at the house at 1426 for 6 years. They live there now with their two young sons. I'm sure they're not small. And they've been thinking about this. They've been thinking about this addition to the house for all 6 years. Basically, this is the, let's see, is it the, oh, there we go. So at the rear of the house currently, let me get to the existing, this is the rear of the house currently. There's a cantilevered section over a small porch. This back here is sort of a walk-through pantry to get to the kitchen beyond. And I know you don't have plans, so it's actually quite important to the layout of the new space. This is the dining room. These are bedrooms up here. This is the front of the house and has obviously a lot more character. The windows, these have a clear story window above them and it wraps around the porch space. These are real windows though. In the back of the house, obviously this is Asbury, and we all know that's an inhospitable space to get groceries out and kids out of car seats, etc. So the focus of this house and the family has always been towards the back, and we're just responding to that more formally here. We've gone through a number of designs to achieve what we need. This is the rear elevation, and actually when I go to the 3D component, I'll focus on this one down here. So there are two volumes that would make up the addition. This, which would be more or less the mudroom area that brings us into the larger space, which is the family room. The family room is adjacent to the kitchen. It allows the homeowners to supervise kids in the backyard and in the family space without, and still be in the kitchen. That's kind of a core function to the house that's missing right now because the kids are playing basically up here in the living room. This is a great backyard. It slopes down, and it's always been the desire of the homeowner to make better use of it and connect more to it through the windows, etc. We are using the same size window in the corners of this volume as exist on the first floor. They are double hung windows that they're larger than most. You can't see it in this, but there's a clear story. There's a transom above the door, creating this little entry space. This is a wood porch or wood landing and stairs down to the patio space, which then goes back to the garage. So the house is clad. I'll get back to the pictures. Clad in lap siding. It's 2 1/4 inches thick. It's very small, and we would continue that around the addition. Breaking up, we're pulling from this horizontal that's present back here and here, and kind of mimicking that relationship in the way these windows are framed, and keeping the brick or keeping the belly band at the bottom, the water table here in wood, reproducing that, and then keeping a brick wainscot below that. On the what is this? The north elevation, we've got a couple more windows into the basement space, which is going to be also valuable space for the family. And then on the south elevation, we've got the required egress light well, which is the bigger of the 2 side yards, which is why that's there. What else? The aberration here is the smaller window here in the mudroom. I think really no plans. I can see that being the difficulty. But we look forward to your comments. Thank you.
Questions?
Is there anybody else here to speak about that?
We look at your south elevation.
South elevation.
Yeah.
This is north. There's south.
I was looking at this, and I actually thought, you couldn't make the roof slopes work, and it's very clear why. The one thing that just looked different when I looked at the elevation online, you extended the band above the windows on the addition. Mm-hmm. And I realized why when you look at I guess it would be the west elevation, because you've extended it. But what's odd about it is, if you go back to the south or the north, mm-hmm. all your windows have that frame across the top and down the 2 sides. Mm-hmm. Sort of a big, reverse U. And it's the only time, at the second floor it's not a problem, because up there, I hope I got this on there, sorry. On the second floor, you're extending the line right below the eave. But that's just a board on the addition. And if you took it off, I kept looking at it, and by the way, your perspective, I think, doesn't have that, the one following. If you go back to, I think you can see you don't have it going up the slope here. No. You don't follow the slope. If you look at your elevation, you take that board. You see you're running it under the rake of the roof. Yeah. But you don't have it there. But I don't think you need that board, and especially if you go around to the north, mm-hmm. because on the north side, it's just a board that dies. Right. It's just sort of like, here's where my addition began, or here's where my addition ended. Right. And if you didn't have it, then you'd be doing exactly the same detail as we have on all the other windows. Mm-hmm. I can understand running the line up following the new roof. That one makes sense. But this one doesn't. Yeah. And that's my only comment. And I don't have any problem with all windows being different sizes. This tells me what's behind there a lot more, and I won't go back. You explain, the mudroom. We don't need a plan. We can understand where the bathrooms and the stairs are. That's not a problem. At least for me.
Were there any comments from the? Would anybody like to make a motion? So Anybody?
I moved to issue a certificate of appropriateness for 14 something 26 Asbury Avenue in applicable standards for construction in 1 through 5, 7, 8, and 10 through 15 apply.
A second?
I'll second.
Diane? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. 1422 Hinman Avenue.
Do we need to sign in?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Junie Petrick. I'm here representing my clients who wish to build a new coach house with 3-car garage. I'm just going to read what I wrote, and then I'll continue. We are proposing to remove an existing 2-car garage and carport. It is in unstable condition and needs replacement. Within an R5 zoning and preservation district, this proposed coach house provides our client with their needs and reflects the neighborhood. Materials, use, proportions proposed are common in the neighborhood. So basically, I'm not sure if I know how to use this. How do I fold?
Is the on the right and left? We added that is the statement of significance for properties in the third district and conditions of anything.
Yeah, they've repainted it just a bit different. And that is the carport. Right now, if you all have driven by, there's a fence where that carport has, the structure has actually collapsed. And I think I included some of those pictures in my pictures. So this this is the front of the residence. And you can see to the left there's I don't know if it's a 3-story or 4-story condo building. And then to the right is a large, I think it looks like it's a duplex, but it's actually a single family, I believe. But it's a large old Victorian to the right. And this is their carport, the garage and their carport. This is a view from their house. And as you can see, it has this batten board. This was the original. I believe this almost is like a corral for horses, it used to be. On the other side of the property, you don't really see it. Yeah. I had 2 sheets of photos, and I just realized my copier did not.
We couldn't put floor plans. That's a directive.
Oh, okay. Well, I had a whole other set of drawings of the exterior, and I apologize that my copy maker missed them somehow. But anyway, so the goal was they wanted a coach house space, but also to conform with zoning requirements. Zoning had asked for a 3-car garage, so the garage kind of became bigger. The scale of the actual coach house needed to be three-quarters the height of the original house. So, it clearly, if built to scale, it would be clearly a secondary building behind this building. The existing residence is probably one of the, I would say, more modest or shorter houses in the neighborhood. And so we've kind of maintained that with the coach house, even though it is in an R5 and it has like a higher building height.
Jenny, the elevations are there, you just need to keep going.
Oh, okay. So these are the originals. And then this is what's proposed. This is the view from the residence. So this is kind of like their front of their coach house. This is kind of like a 2-story coach house that for them they needed studio space. And this is a mudroom area. And then behind this mass is a 3-car garage. The pitch of the roof matches the pitch of the existing residence. We're also matching the trim from the existing residence. And then the batten board is from the original structure. Because this is a secondary building on the property, we thought it would be appropriate to continue with the batten board. And then the window fenestrations, we have some double hung. These are actually going to be, they look like French doors, but they can be opened up clearly so that they could have like a connection from the indoors out to their backyard. They have 2 young kids, and their hopes are to entertain as well as to work and work out there. And then this is an open studio space above that will be lofted, and then a bathroom up there and storage, so it could be either used as an office space or a living area. Let's see. This is the back that would be from the alley, probably like most clearly from the public way. Right behind us is Fourth Pres, a large masonry structure. Our First Pres. Thank you. This is actually like where the stairs are, a powder room, and these are 2 windows just to bring in light into that back corridor. But basically what we tried to do was to maintain kind of the massing of the house in a smaller version, and then also with materials, proportions, etc., kind of continue with the original house. Is the rendering in here, Carlos? Is that at the end? Okay.
Yes.
Those are the 2 side. This side would actually be, I'm trying to think, it's 5 feet off the property line, and it's adjacent to the 4-story condo association. And then this is on the other side of the property, or the north side of the property, adjacent to the garage from their neighbors to the north.
Oh, I'm sorry. It should be there in elevation. The drawings.
Did I don't remember seeing them. Oh, I have a copy. You guys want to look at it?
Yeah, please.
Does anybody have any questions?
Just a minute here. Is there any questions on it?
No. When I saw the recess on the south, it made a little more sense. But I was trying to understand that band above the door. I thought it was the beam holding up the edge of the roof, but it's on the wall itself. On the end, your end bay.
Oh, yeah, it's like a covered, yeah, these plants would be, well, actually, my plants I think are in there, aren't they? It's a covered porch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm just, it's that horizontal line below the gutter. That seems to be an applied trim on the face of the building.
It's like a structural, it would be just like a beam.
But you're showing it on the wall, not out at the edge of the roof, if you look at your rendering. That's what I was trying to understand.
It's this.
Yeah.
Oh, someone, I had hired someone, they just got it wrong.
They put it in the wrong place. See, that's why I thought it was a beam holding up the roof until I
Yeah, it's just like a traditional porch, covered porch.
Okay.
Any questions? Was there anybody from the audience who wished to speak about this project?
I have a question.
You'll have to come up and sign in and introduce yourself.
Did you sign in before, sir? I did not. Sorry.
I wish you didn't ask that question.
Hi, my name is Christopher Coward, and I'm the property owner for the north, so the big house.
What's the address?
It's 1426 Hinman. And my question is just what the distance is from that the north wall to the property line at this point is going to be on the new drawings?
It's a 5, you know, I mean, it's either 3 feet or 5 feet, and I'm just forgetting the notes. It's the minimum zoning requirement.
Ginny,
Yeah.
can you please speak out this way?
It is the minimum zoning requirement. I think it's 3 feet. Hold on, let me just confirm that. 3 feet. And existing right now. Is that what your question is? Is 4'7".
So I don't know if you guys are the right people to talk to, but my concern is, so my property, like my garage, which is a super old structure, is about, sorry, check my notes. It's 42 inches off the property line. And they're currently at 47, and if they move to 32, it's going to be increasingly tight. And what's the egress off the property? Because are they going to the property line on both sides of the fence? Because there's no gate back there right now.
Oh,
Excuse me, you need to go to the mic.
Sorry.
There would be a gate there. There's a gate? No, it's just closed off. So there would be a gate at the coach house. Does that make sense? There's a fence. You have a fence between the two of your properties, right? And then they would have a gate to their alleyway.
Okay, so on the north side of the coach house.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I live in the house right north.
Excuse me, can you tell us your name and address,
I'm
please?
Sally Lynch, 512 Lake Street. And this does not affect me at all, but I'm very concerned about the Cowards' walkway to their house. It's very narrow right now between the two porches. And if you shrink that, I just think it's not fair. I think having a coach house back there is fabulous. it fits in with the style of the neighborhood. I think it would be a great addition. I just don't want it to encroach too much on my neighbors. Can I just sign in?
Please. And also, what's your address, please?
512 Lake Street. We share the alley. And I am facing Lake Street, right across from Raymond.
Can you go back to the site plan and maybe show us where?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
So this is the existing conditions, existing garage with the 4'7" right now.
You have a pointer there, Jeannie, the little star there.
Sorry. There. Okay, so, and this is the proposed structure, and if you see the width is 3 feet. I understand your concerns. This, I think if we could have kept it wider, we would have. It's just to meet, unfortunately we don't have the plan here, but the width of, to meet requirements of a 3-car garage, that then affected the width of the coach house. And so we maximized that width to the zoning requirements. I can definitely tell the clients, your neighbors, one thing that they should do regardless, but just the contractor during the construction that ensures is so close that we would, be aware of that during construction and be, considerate.
I have a question. So in terms of, so just repeat this for me. So, so zoning, you can go, 3 feet is the minimum, is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
For us, I don't know if it's a secondary structure or a garage.
And so what happened, it wasn't like it was, you had another, on one side, 1'7" or something?
Yeah.
Is there any drainage issues that anybody's concerned about? Because you're coming closer, so the water runoff and it has to be on your property. So I'm just wondering about that.
Right. Well, we had civil engineers do the drainage and grading. As far as there was nothing that came about in that discussion, so I assumed it was working appropriately. 3 feet is typical in Evanston, with most garage structures or properties adjacent to each other. You'll find 3 feet is pretty common.
Is the intent to still have the sidewalk on the north side?
Yes, that would be their primary.
Between the building and whatever fence is there?
Yeah.
And then that's not on slab, that's on a foundation. The coach house is on
the coach house is on a foundation, yeah.
So then, if you just talk to the contractor and alert your neighbors, they're going to be overdig right onto.
Right, and maybe they could even
you just have to
comment even the materials on that side yard for drainage issues instead of concrete.
All right. Any other questions? So if you'd like to speak, if you decided to.
Sorry, I measured before I came, and for all of my garage, the wall of the existing structure is 84 inches at its widest point right now. So if we're losing 17, it's going to take it down to somewhere between, at the narrowest point, 61, and the widest point, 67 inches. And I don't know if that's actually, once again, this isn't, you guys aren't zoning, right? It is. It seems like it'll be very narrow.
It's a zoning issue, and it's really not.
So they're looking at the lot that the construction is going to occur. So they look at the lot coverage and impervious surfaces, and then also the setbacks. So this application conforms with the zoning requirements within that lot.
Right. And then just to clarify, the plat survey is shown in the packet, and it shows the garage to the north, so the garage on your property, sir, being 2.3 feet from the property line. That's maybe a little bit more than the 42 inches.
No, that's 27. That's about 28 inches.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. That garage was probably built in 1925. So, if you're talking about my garage.
Right, so it'd be 5+ feet between the two.
Yeah. So, I think it's cool. Thank you.
Sir, do you wish to speak?
Okay. My name is Michael Polis. I'm here with my wife, Suzanne Polis. We reside in the condominium building that was referenced, 1416 Hinman Avenue, Unit 9, and I am signed in. I come here today with an objection and also a proposed solution. But as just a little aside, the previous house, 1426 Asbury, that was Coach Dobby Burton's house, and I handled the closing on that transaction. It's a small world. Anyway, I'd like to begin first with just a comment, because I know impact on adjacent structures of historical importance can be a factor here. And the 1416 Hinman Avenue condominium building is in the Lakeshore Historic District. The modern condominium emerged in 1958 with the Horizontal Property Act of the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico. Illinois adopted the Condominium Property Act effective July 1st, 1963, and the 1416 Hinman Avenue project was already well underway when that law became effective. We are one of the first, maybe the first, purpose-built condominium in Evanston, and that is a very interesting, significant piece of history. The building itself was designed by Ed Noonan and is oriented more to the north and to the south. The building immediately to the south, another Ed Noonan building, is ingeniously situated so as to complement 1416 Hinman, and to the north we overlook the property that is before you today, 1422 Hinman. The point that I am addressing primarily, well, actually just one quick aside, there was a mention of a corral. I've always assumed that what was described as a carport was indeed part of a stable when 1422 Hinman was built. People still traveled primarily by horseback, and so that may well be the remnants of the stable. I wasn't there at the time, so I can't say for sure. Anyway, between our 1416 Hinman and 1422 Hinman, there used to be a very large collection of boundary trees, which the 1416 Hinman Avenue Condominium Association maintained at its expense. Unfortunately, when the new owners came in, most of those trees were cut down. There was only one left, an American elm, which is adjacent to the existing stable, garage, carport, whatever you would want to call it. And in looking at the plans, it appears to me that the plans call for that tree to be torn down. Now, in section B of the application, item 2, landscaping is raised as a question, and it is not checked off. And landscaping is a proper consideration for the board, for the commission to consider. Your rules, in fact, reference the Secretary of Housing's Secretary of the Interior standards, which include what would that be, 36 CFR 6727, landscape features. This particular block has a open space in the middle. The west side of the block is all building, the Presbyterian Church and a parking lot. And there are large buildings on either end of the Hinman block with this nice little area in the middle that has trees and other nice attributes, which also tend to attract fauna. This one last American elm, taking that down, destroys the largest tree on the block, which is a significant asset. And I don't have a PowerPoint for you. I do have a few photographs if I could distribute them to you, if that would be all right. Not too many. Sorry. This first. Thank you. This first picture is simply to show you the beautiful canopy that this tree creates in the middle of the block. And this tree tends to bring along, sorry, you can see here that is either a peregrine falcon or a red-tailed hawk that tends to come and sit in that tree with some regularity. That hawk also sometimes comes down from the canopy of the tree and sits on my parapet just a few feet from my desk where I sometimes work during the day. We've had foxes back there, all sorts of interesting animals. It's an important part of the ecosystem. Now, if you look at the plans, I don't have a little pointer, but there is actually on one of these sketches the current location of the tree is shown.
You see the clicker there?
No.
It's a star.
So on this picture, you can see where the tree is located. They show the canopy of the tree next to the existing carport, stable, whatever it is. If we look at the footprint now of the proposed building, you will see that the tree, they do show what would I guess be the remnants of the stump covered up by the proposed new building. But I hate to see a tree fall down or be taken down. If you consider their plan, where the tree is actually not part of the interior of the proposed building. It is the, there's a little light here?
Yep, the star. The top.
Ah. It is this inset covered entryway. That is where this tree is. And so when I say I had to come here with an objection and a proposed solution, it occurs to me that you could simply make this part of the garage a little shorter, maybe lower the roof down a bit, which would give it even more architectural interest. Have the entry directly into the mudroom. They could put an awning out there or something, or maybe a little covered section to, if they wanted to have a covered entrance to that mudroom. And the tree stands. Their function is preserved. In fact, if they wanted to, if they were going to maybe just make this a little lower so that it was even rather than being cut off up the way, if you swap these doors, you'd actually have a nice alignment of architectural features. And that's what seemed to me to be a very nice way to have a win-win solution here. This beautiful, large American elm stands. The garage with the apartment still goes up. I'm not particularly fond of all of the bulk, but I don't want to be unreasonable in my objection. And they still have the full use, their mudroom, their garage, everything stands. The only sacrifice to save a beautiful, irreplaceable tree is not having a covered porch entryway to a mudroom. Thank you.
Thank you for your concern. We did actually, when we first started this project, one of our goals, especially the client's concern, was to save the Native American elm. If we go back, we tried, the reason why it's in a lot of these drawings, like this is actually like the interior, like right on the wall of the garage. But with zoning requirements for, we first tried with just two-car garage, but because of the size requirements for zoning, and also because of the size of the structure, we have to have a full foundation wall. It can't be just poured slab on ground, and so with that you get excavation, which even if we tried to save the elm, which we physically couldn't because it's literally inside the garage, but even if we did try to save it, the root structure would be destroyed and it would eventually, unfortunately, die. So we had a huge, conversation and dilemma about this, but unfortunately just with all the requirements to be met, we just physically couldn't save the elm, and I know there's plans to plant a new tree. And they did do some considerable landscaping, and they are concerned about planting some more trees in this backyard.
Is the zoning requirement due to the fact that you're building a certain amount of square footage of coach house space, and therefore you have to build a certain size?
If you have a habitable space, then you have to provide one parking space for that, but then you also have to have the two for the single family. So since it's kind of like, you have to have one for the coach house and then two for the single. That's what I was told. So we had to, we were trying to do just two, like 2.5, and then we were, to meet the requirements for the coach house, we had to have 3. We've looked at having like a surface parking space. I think that actually intruded more, ate up more space because it was like one surface, because it couldn't be in that 3-foot setback. So we played around with a lot just to meet the requirements of the zoning. And we did want to save that tree. It's a beautiful tree.
Jeannie, currently the tree is really close to the existing structure, so isn't there the roots of the tree, do you see currently on this?
It's funny because there's actually dirt and gravel in that space because it was, I believe it was a stable. So it really never had it might have had a slab, but it's crumbled. But that's about it. So, I think it's been able to survive just by the structure being no slab. No. Yeah.
So there's no slab under this carport?
No.
It is possible not to have a full foundation there. I had one where we worked around a tree that was much bigger than that. You don't have to go all the way down, and you could have basically a grade beam and a couple of piers, and you could actually work your way around it. I think that if you look at the plan that showed the full canopy of the tree, though, I suspect that even punching the trunk through there, I think so much of what we consider the canopy of the tree would be lost by this construction anyway. So you have to ask yourself, whether it would survive. But I think you could actually salvage the roots. I don't think the roots are the issue. A solution obviously is that you're only using the portion of all your garage spaces are south of the rectangle running east-west. Because you've run the living space all the way to the alley. So I think that's why it's so crowded in terms of where the garage is.
And we took in consideration the condo with the massing. You know, we wanted to keep that side, the south side of the building structure lower than the north side because we realized people were living directly adjacent to that space. And so that was one of the reasons also why the parking spaces kind of were governed to the south side. But so the building department requires with a 600 square foot space that we then have to have at least a 42-inch foundation wall. And so that's where it just becomes, you know, a lot bigger than you.
Do we know, can you apply for a zoning variance for that requirement of the third spot?
I don't think so. Well, you might.
You can apply for them if you
How do you know that the tree isn't going to die? I mean, yeah. Are there overhead, because I can't tell from this photograph, are there overhead wires from the...
I know there's a pole back there. I can't remember where they are. Hold on.
They're out.
Oh, yeah, I think you picked up my.
I get all that power.
Sorry, I just. I don't know which one. It's one of these. There are wires on the north side. You see them from the photo. Okay, thank you.
Is there any more questions? I thought we weren't supposed to like cut down old elm trees in Evanston.
I think that's his point.
I know, but I'm saying like I thought like it's against the law. It's not. You can cut down like an old elm tree.
If they have no child.
I thought like you could get in big trouble if you cut one down in the yard. No. No. Okay.
I think in terms of what was there before, I should add, and this is in full disclosure, I did the drawings for 1414. I was at Noonan's office at the time, so I knew about that one. And what we found when we were digging in that whole area were lots of artifacts in the ground and a lot of things. The lake, what everybody forgets is the lake front was literally up to about Hinman. So there used to be a lot of warehouses, and all the rest. And so there was all sorts of goodies being found, you know, bottles, and everybody was finding wonderful old bottles that had patina in the ground all around that site. So that probably, whether that was a stable or it was part of some kind of a shipping, receiving, literally boats would be unloading in that area way back.
Okay, we better move that along. Do you want to make one last very, one last very brief comment and then?
Based on what I think has been a very useful discussion, I'd like to ask that our neighbors consider going back to the Zoning Board of Appeals to see if these various interests could be accommodated. They're adding a requirement for parking space. It does not have to be a garage space, which means it could still be a surface space, and or possibly covered with like a carport, such as it currently exists, maybe even with the preservation of that nice little stable detail, and perhaps explore specifically the feasibility of preserving the tree with a qualified arborist, so that rather than make a decision based on assumptions, we could have solid facts and perhaps the best possible outcome for everybody. I certainly know that I would appear in support such any kind of variation before the Zoning Board of Appeals, and perhaps our neighbors would be supportive as well. We certainly wish to see this beautiful, gigantic tree preserved if at all possible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any discussion between the commissioners as to what they would like to do? Even if we approve, obviously we could encourage the parties to continue discussions if we want to approve.
I just think that even if you push it back, like you're just going to be, you may lose the tree anyway. But I don't know if you've talked to an arborist, and I don't know what your clients.
They've talked to an arborist, and they didn't get a solid confirmation. I mean, the tree is so big, the roots are so big. You know, even if we shortened it one and did like a surface, it would still intrude because it's like the car dimension that's required for the parking spaces like runs right into the tree trunk. And then the structure alone that has to be built for that requirement is in the tree trunk root. The civil engineer said we'd have to remove it. I mean, I could reconsider, you know, I could talk to my clients and ask them if they want to, you know, bring up the discussion again. But I think we kind of exasperated all of our ways. Talking to the civil engineer, the arborist, the building department, the zoning.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion or would anybody like to make a motion?
I want to say build it but keep the tree. Because I think if you cut back, the way it looks in the pictures, if you cut back like the top branch of the tree, I mean, I'm really sympathetic to the neighbors because I used to live in a situation like this where it's like the only big beautiful tree for like all these condos and apartments, and then you get rid of it and like you're all staring at each other.
Well, I guess
it's the top branch.
I mean, I just think if you got rid of the top branch, the coach house can be built, three-car coach.
I just think I don't think that's true. I think that the root, I really do, think that the roots are probably so large that in terms of how much they cover, that, you know, you don't know. You can do, you know, that's gonna, the way I see it, that would be up to Jean and her clients, but I think that's just a very difficult problem. I mean, the tree might die anyway, and then they're spending all this, I mean,
It's really canopy, and so
the roots are.
Yeah, so I think that's not like
all of this is being dug up at least 42 inches. You know, we wanted to save it. It's just next to impossible. And even if we tried and build like a small structure here, we could still damage it enough to where it would have to be eventually taken down.
Any other discussion? Does anybody want to make a motion?
I move that we issue a certificate of appropriateness for the project at 1422 Inman Avenue, and that the standards for construction 1 through 5, 7, 8, 10 through 14, and 16 have been met, along with the standards for demolition 1 through 6.
Second?
Second.
Diane? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Thank you. Our next project is 1926 Central Street, Frederick Yale applicant.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Peter Erbley. I'm an architect in private practice representing Frederick Yale, the building owner. As you can see from the photo here, from the old video adventures, 1926 Central is a single-story building with a limestone facade. It has a clear anodized aluminum storefront. It was probably put in the 80s or 90s. It's currently a restaurant that's out of business. Mr. Gale is buying the building to turn it into a casual restaurant. And we're looking at doing a couple of alterations to the existing facade. That'll be the first part we'll be talking about. And then looking at putting in a rooftop garden for 49 people behind the facade. Here's a cover sheet. Basically, it's on the south side of Central Avenue, a little bit west of the the old First National Bank Chase building. That's the existing floor plan right there. You'll see that there's hey, actually a little pointer here. Hello. On the east side of the building, there's an existing foyer. There's also a doorway down here for 2 exits out into the alley, loading dock into the alley. As you can see, our proposed restaurant layout, we're reducing the size of the existing bathrooms, still meets the Illinois Plumbing Code. We're going to be putting in a stairway. Here we go. Putting in a stairway that goes up to the roof structure. We're moving the vestibule down to the west side of the floor. We're looking at putting an automatic closer on the door so a handicapped person can push the button, open the door here, but otherwise everything else is accessible. We're looking at closing off the vestibule, we're moving the vestibule, closing off the door here, putting in a flat panel glass to match the existing facade. Here's our existing roof. The new roof deck right here, seating for 48 people in a little service station. It's about 700 square feet to meet international building code requirements for a single stairway, single exit. Here's our little existing facade. There's 2 limestone columns here that are going to be noted in just a second. Rather large double pane glass right here. The new facade that we're showing here, we're going to be taking out the large piece of glass here and putting in a series of double hung windows. By opening the windows, God, I'll try to put this later. By opening up the windows, when it's nice outside like tonight, diners could have a nice little experience. People walking down the street can engage. It's more open atmosphere. We will be putting in, wrought iron and solid steel. I'm sorry, I got out of the hospital a couple weeks ago, and I'm still a little bit, my brain is still not complete there, but we have a little planter here. We can grow some plants, help put the foliage. We have a little foliage wall in the back, and the stairwell wall right there. A little cross section can show what how far back. Excuse me 1 second, I'm a little bit blind here. The stairwell enclosure is 25 feet back from the property line, which is an important note. You can see a little perspective here from, we also have from across Central Street. You can see that even though in an elevation, that planter wall and that enclosure seem to be pretty large, you can see from perspective that you really don't see that very much at all. When you're walking on when you're walking the south side of Central Street, the angle is such that you wouldn't be able to look up in there anyway. When you're across the street, the distance is such that the impact is lower. The important point right here, we're just closing that up. So, it would still be the same plane as it is currently, but there's a little new entrance right there. And I pick up on that at nighttime. The other little feature we're doing is that we put in a little LED exit lighting above the existing pediment. And also there's a couple limestone octagonal columns. There's a little space between the column and the wall right behind it that we could tuck in a 1-inch LED outdoor light. And here's a view from the rooftop deck. And I'd be happy to entertain any questions or comments you may have.
Any questions?
Back to the existing elevation.
Certainly. How about one more? Here we go. Yes, sir.
I was just wondering about the horizontal line, but it seems as if you're holding the same line.
Oh, yes, sir. We're adapting the existing storefront to put in the operable windows.
So you have a proposed front and then you have an alternate front?
Yes.
And which one?
The proposed front is double hung window.
I see that.
Yeah. The alternate will be a sliding window.
Are you proposing that we is there room for, I know you're showing this too, right? So,
Yes, I am.
which is the one, I'm just wondering, do you have a preference that you want us to look at?
Well, let me ask, let me have a sidebar with my clients here.
The double hung is the preferred.
Great, thank you.
I have one quick question about the windows. Given who designed this building, I was wondering if you took a look at any historical references as part of that.
We could not find any, I was not able to find any.
Okay. Yeah. I was wondering if there was any mayor info on that.
Any more questions? Was there anyone else who came to speak to this project?
I received an email from one of the volunteers. She was just asking the commission to pay attention to the building because of the architect and design being a landmark. And her question was whether or not the outdoor dining on top would have any negative impact on the front elevation. She just wanted to make sure that it would not, but just want to call to your attention. And I also provided a statement of significance of the building as well.
Perhaps you want to mention using
Yeah, setback and.
Okay. Would any of you like to make a motion?
Can we discuss the two elevations, or are we only discussing the other one?
Double hung. The
That's the only one. That's the only one that we're.
That's
the one that's
we're voting on the double hung windows as the
preferred
proposal. But we'll vote on that as the proposal.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
Would somebody like to make a motion?
I move that we issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application for 1926 Central Street to build a rooftop patio deck for the restaurant. The deck will accommodate 49 people with a stairway to the rooftop. Adding double hung windows, which is the applicant's preferred option and first option within the packet, to portions of the existing storefront for natural ventilations. The alterations to the storefront will allow accessible entrances and relocation of the entrance vestibule. The applicable standards for alteration 1 through 7, 9, and 10 apply.
And second? Amy? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a nice evening.
What kind of restaurant?
Yes.
Next.
Oh,
The last new business is 1314 Davis Street.
Is that walking distance? Yes, that's awesome. Feel better now. No, it's like the. I feel like I want to do that.
All right. I'm Todd Israel. I'm the architect for 1314 Davis. My client, Alex Turk, purchased this home in December with the intention of moving into it after renovations with his small children and raising his family there. Let's see.
The existing house is a non-conforming house in the Ridge Historic District. It was purchased from the original owner, so everything in the house is 45 years old. There's yellow carpeting, everything is original. So the roof is, I think the roof may have been recovered, but the siding is original, the windows are original, everything's original. And things are leaking and they need replacement. And so that's what we're working on with my client. We're proposing removing the covered canopy and replacing it with something that's open on the top, a pergola structure, because even with those plastic bubble skylights, it's very dark and sort of forbidding, and it doesn't really feel like the front entrance to a house. I think part of the original design intention was that these people were very private and they didn't want windows facing Davis Street or other sort of public areas, so there are these giant blank walls, which I realize that's part of the original design intent, but we'd sort of like to remedy that issue. So we're actually proposing two small additions that would extend the roof line. One's on the front. Oops. How do I do the...
There's this powder.
So right here is a little front addition. We want to use that space as a master bedroom. There currently aren't any bedroom spaces that are larger than any others. So that's the reason for that addition. The addition off the back, we want to have sort of an open kitchen, dining room, living room concept, and that allows us to do that. We're proposing removing the pergola structure in the front, as I had mentioned, replacing, or the canopy, replacing with the pergola structure so that it's open. And then we're also proposing something similar back here. So there's a patio area right off of the living room that can provide some shade with vines and other sort of foliage growing there. The deck area to the west of it does not have a covering over it, so that's just open to the sunlight. There's an existing concrete pad in the backyard. There's no garage currently. We're proposing using that same footprint and putting a garage in that location. So here are the existing elevations. The next slide should show the proposed. Everything that we're adding is shown in yellow. The garage is going to just have a flat roof. Here's some photos of the existing conditions, all four sides. The photographs on the back are the view from the alley, and the photographs on the top are what you see from Davis. Really, the facade that's most visible is sort of looking to the southeast. If you're looking kind of straight south from Davis, you sort of see that middle top picture, but there's a kind of a historic fence in front of it that's part of the neighboring property, and so it kind of masks that. What you really see is kind of the upper right-hand picture is sort of the major elevation. We're proposing replacing the vertical siding with synthetic stucco. There are a lot of other stucco homes in the neighborhood. So the picture to the right is Davis Street looking to the southeast. Our house is hard to see, but it's kind of right here. So these two houses are both stucco. I included the picture on the left as an example of a house that I did that used synthetic stucco for the addition. The lower part right here is an addition. The upper part here is the original stucco, and it's hard to tell the difference. The guys did a really nice job installing it. So that's what we're proposing is synthetic stucco as the siding material. Currently, the sliding doors, there are no actual sort of windows in this house. Everything is a sliding door. Technically, I think it's illegal because the drop-off between the sill of the doors and grade is like 26 inches. The maximum is 24. So if the door slides open, someone could fall out. I don't think that the intention was ever to have decks all the way around this thing. So we're proposing windows that operate from a more standard height and then have just fixed glass, tempered glass to fill in the rest of the opening. At least that's it for my presentation. Do you have any questions?
It's a huge lot.
It's a huge, huge lot, yeah.
All right. Ask questions, do we have a motion to approve? Carl, do you want to? Yeah,
Okay. I move that we issue a certificate of appropriateness for 1314 days for standards, applicable standards for operation 1 through 7, 9, and 10. And construction 1 through 8, and 10 through 16, and demolition 1 through 6.
Second?
Second.
Second? Oh, yeah. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any extensions? Motion is carried. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
So the minutes, Carlos had circulated revised minutes. Were there any comments?
I think I sent Carlos the second note about the change his name to all that.
Yeah. I had a couple of things, and as I told Carlos in an email later this afternoon, I'll just send it to him. They're not big changes, and don't change anything in terms of what was said. So.
Catch the header, it says 2018.
What was that?
The title says January 2018.
Oh.
Yeah. That's that was one.
Should we approve? We could then approve the minutes subject to corrections.
Yeah.
You need actual motion, right? To approve?
Yes.
Yeah.
You need a motion.
Okay. Diane, do you want to make a
Sure.
It's a tough one.
Yeah. I move to approve the minutes of the January, what was the date again? 8th, 2019 minutes subject to corrections.
Second?
I second.
Julie seconds. All in favor?
All in favor, aye.
I oppose.
Okay, staff reports. So, I'd like to report, we have confirmation from the camp group to hold the workshop on April 26th, which is a Friday. So now I can proceed with some of the paperwork, including there's some contractors documentation that we need to file with the purchasing department, and they will also draw an agreement with CAMP that should be signed by the city manager. In the meantime, I will advertise the event for other communities that have expressed interest, including Highland Park. And as I mentioned at the last meeting, also Landmarks Illinois was interested in advertising the event. We have a limitation of 30 people, so our goal is that all commissioners could attend this important workshop. And also we have staff that will attend the workshop, so I need to know as soon as I can, as soon as you decide how many seats we will have for the City of Evanston staff and the commission, so we can open up the registration for the other communities. I would not be surprised if we have more people who would like to attend rather than not, because we already received some interest on it. So if you don't mind just checking your calendars for April 26th, Friday. It's Monday at 9 o'clock, until about 2-3 p.m.
It'll be here.
Here in the Civic Center, correct? So you don't have to tell me now, but I would be sending you emails just to confirm your attendance.
Anything else? Here.
I have a question. Can we talk about this no plan issue, which I don't understand, and I think I'd like to understand it, how it, because it's difficult. I don't understand.
Well, maybe Scott probably has more background than I do, but I'd like to say something and maybe Scott can compliment. So my understanding is that the city of Evanston has confronted this issue in the past, and it has to do with privacy. So when we publish this online, people know how your house is laid out, so it's a matter of privacy. So my understanding is that the law department has determined that it is not appropriate for the city to publish floor plans, and that's why the limitation that we have to review with elevations and the site plan.
Do they understand that it's more difficult for us to understand, as you saw in some of these projects? Have they thought about that? Is there a way that they may not be published online, but at least the commission can see them, so that we can understand what we're talking about when the massing is really complicated and it's not explored,
I mean, it seems like people could bring a printout and just pass it around. They do that all the time. These photos weren't in the packet. People bring models that are not in the packet. Right.
So
we have to have them.
We do.
To understand.
Yeah, it's just
like this.
This
coach.
Well, what about simplify?
Well, Scott, I talked to other colleagues in my office, and we have the same concern. I do have the same concern because of what I've experienced over the years, what the commission needs to have. I think that the commission would to send a letter to the law department or the director of community development in this case, to express, what the concerns is. I think that potentially the solution would be that we don't put the floor plans online, that the applicant would bring the floor plans for distribution, and that would be under consent. So we cannot make someone to bring unless they want to. That would be my suggestion, so that at least we have something. May not happen all the time, but
I mean, you could ask that. I was just thinking, so what happens is you get some of these renderings, which, some are better than others, and some show the massing and some don't. So, like, you could have a requirement that the massing is completely described correctly through, a rendering, because they're, sometimes they just show the front. I don't know how to get to what we need except with the floor plan. So we should write a letter.
I mean, I can communicate to concerns.
I think it's like fair.
I think that, I have certain level of I'm staff, so
Well, I'm curious because Scott, I mean, even for us, but I think about if this was, some of these were zoning cases, very often you need to see the floor plans just to deal with the zoning variance. And how do you do it? Oh, well, we're moving this over and we're making it this large, but we're not going to tell you why. But I don't see how you
get a variance. We're coming to the Preservation Commission to request a zoning variance to have a 2-foot setback instead of 3. Right. And it's critical the way the interior of this coach house functions. But we have no installations.
Well, even the first case that we saw tonight, because, the drawing issue aside, which was a problem, the thing is it was very difficult to understand what was going on and what they were trying to communicate, really.
The argument there is that there's no reason in his case to hide the plans because the house doesn't exist yet. So there's no secrecy because we don't know when they do the plans that it's going to look like that on the inside. So it's not a question of my going in, because I know I can't go in and get a FOIA for somebody else's floor plans. But I could certainly at least be able to see it in this case because it's conceptual at this point. I mean, some of these others are existing homes, and I can understand that.
But wait, so I do have a question for zoning. You must show a floor plan. How do you not, for zoning, show a floor plan? I mean, is that a new rule in zoning? That would be crazy.
Yeah, the current practice is the floor plans are shown.
For zoning,
current practice there.
because you have to prove, whatever hardship, right? So, so Carl said you should make the case. I mean, we're doing a disservice to people if we can't understand what we're looking at.
Is this whole basis that preservation doesn't need to see the interior versus zoning, for example?
I don't know.
There's some concern about privacy and also concern that the focus of the commission is on the exterior of the buildings, as far as exterior appearance. But I think these are all good comments, and we have to have the meetings on video, so we'll relay all these comments, and if there are any additional...
Yeah, I guess I would disagree with the fact that we focused on the interiors too much. I don't think that that's the case at all, and that I would disagree with.
I think it's just a shortcut to, if something odd is happening in the exterior, the window size is changing, whatever, we can all look at the floor plan, that's the kitchen or whatever.
Or sometimes sometimes it's drawn so poorly that the
elevations and the plans and nothing really matches, and you can tell right away, from the plans, the massing, that like something's wrong and they need to go back and correct it. Right. So we have another layer. Right. So.
But there's been so
Do we
many.
need to write a letter? Is that kind of...
I think that Scott and I can probably approach our superiors and explain the decision of the commission. And like Scott said, it's also recorded, so we can always share that with them. For me personally, it was difficult because I didn't feel that the commission would have a good set of good information to make a decision. I kind of tend to disagree a little bit with Elliot because it's not being built. Once it's approved, supposedly it's not going to be built that way. So there's an issue of privacy there.
Not included in
No, but if somebody's publishing the floor plans, then
it's likely to be.
They will be there, but that's not really the issue. The issue is whether or not the commission should. I think there's a solution, and that's not publishing the floor plans, asking the applicant to bring hard copies of the plans, and if the commission feels that it's necessary to look at the plans, then the applicant can really distribute those.
You can make it clear to the applicants that it's strongly and vastly improves their chances of getting it.
But I think that you're right. I think most people all people want it to be approved. So if something they can provide to the commission freely and willingly to advance their project. But I think that we have to wait in what the law department also has to say, and so. All right.
I move that we adjourn.
I second.
You were waiting for that.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye.